At the beginning of the movie we meet Joe Tyler, who complains about his job, as it's a mess. The guy tries to get into the casino, but he can't do it legally, so he decides to get into the room through the window. The hero decides to make a bet and notices that the employee deals cards from the bottom of the deck, which is forbidden. Joe makes a fuss about it and the owner, Fat Charlie, shows up. The man is extremely unhappy with the accusations, but the hero promises to provide photos. However, instead of confirmation, Charlie receives a subpoena, and Joe documents it with photos. The owner orders his guys to destroy the guy, but the guy reports on the walkie-talkie that if he doesn't come out in a minute, you can take over the building. The ruse works, because in fact Joe has been in touch with his young friend on the walkie-talkie. However, for such a successful case, the hero does not receive praise from his superiors, and even on the contrary. Ray Harris accuses the guy of taking too long to deliver the summons. He cites the example of Tony, who manages to cope with his task many times faster. Joe clearly dislikes his colleague, and points out to the boss that the Italian mixed up the dates. Ray takes this into account and gives the urgent case in Texas to Joe. The action shifts to Sara Moore, who heads to the airport and bids Gordon a sweet farewell. However, no sooner does his wife escape than the macho Texan puts his mistress named Kate in the car. Meanwhile, Tony, under the pretext of reconciliation, approaches Joe's desk and learns the contacts of his client from Texas. She turns out to be Sara Moore. Tony calls the girl and informs her that a man with a summons is coming to her soon and it is better for her to run away. A frightened Sara grabs her things and is about to run away. She runs into Joe at the door and lies that the girl he's looking for lives in another room. However, in the elevator, an elderly woman next door calls Sara by name and reveals her. Joe rushes to her to hand her a summons, but the girl runs off into the street. Sara tries to catch a cab, but, noticing the hero, rushes away. After learning about Joe's failure, Ray Harris becomes furious and decides to give Sara's case to Tony, who wanted to get the case back. However, the hero does not intend to give up, and decides to go to his acquaintance policeman Milton. For a small reward, Joe asks the man to find out the address by phone number. The hero realizes that in no case cannot let Tony find Sara before him. So the guy books a room in her name, and leaves a crumpled note with the address in the trash can. We also learn that Joe has set up a vineyard in the apartment and dreams of having his own plantation someday. When the guy leaves, Tony breaks into his house and finds the note. The next day, Joe successfully delivers a divorce summons to a stunned Sara. The hero reports this to Ray and is about to drive home, but he is attacked by Charlie's boys and his car is taken away. Joe goes home on the bus, which also enters Sara. From her, the guy learns that Tony warned about his visit and suspects that all these 2 months he has been working badly because of the Italian. In addition, Joe tells the girl that since she received the summons first, she will receive less money than if her husband had received the summons. Unexpectedly, Sara offers to cooperate. If Joe first serves a subpoena to Gordon, then he will receive $1 million. The heroes fly to Texas to catch an unfaithful spouse as soon as possible. Joe asks the girl not to give herself away and let him serve the subpoena first. However, when Sara notices the spouse in the company of pretty girls, she goes out of her mind. Joe tries to save the case and serve the summons, but Gordon escapes. Meanwhile, Ray gets a call from his partner. He reports that Sara suddenly appeared in Texas with some Joe and tried to serve a subpoena to his client. Angered by this turn of events, Gordon decides to seek help from his personal security guard Vernon, who terrifies all the employees. Harris, stunned by Joe's betrayal, calls Tony and informs him that Sara is in Texas. Joe and his companion head to Gordon's office. A co-worker named Doris informs them that their boss has taken a receipt from them not to disclose his whereabouts. However, the kind woman does point to the ranch on the map, but does so silently so as not to arouse the suspicion of her co-workers. Sara thanks her and leaves, complaining loudly that it's as if she hadn't learned anything about her husband's whereabouts. The heroes head to the airport, and the girl shares her suspicions with Joe. Perhaps Gordon has a mistress. Suddenly it turns out that her husband canceled Sara's credit cards. The upset girl runs to the bathroom and cries, not believing that Gordon could do such a thing. Meanwhile, Joe is talking to an airport employee when he suddenly notices Tony. The Italian accuses the hero of giving him a round-the-world trip. However, Joe notes that this is quite fair, given that Tony has been warning Joe's clients for 2 months about the imminent receipt of a summons. Suddenly, the Italian notices Sara coming out of the toilet and hurries to her. Joe realizes that the situation is becoming critical and pushes a dog cage towards his opponent. Taking advantage of Tony's confusion, the hero tries to steal Sara away and explains that if she is served with a summons, they are finished. The heroes decide to escape through the luggage belt, but there is an unpleasant incident. Sara's jeans cling to one of the parts, and Joe has to tear them to save the girl. She decides to use this event to change her image. The couple manages to escape, but Tony learns from an airport employee that they are going to Gordon's ranch in Amarillo. The Italian sets off after them, and Joe meanwhile drives the car to Durango, admiring the beauty of Texas. Sara suggests they spend the night at a hotel because the ranches are well guarded at night. However, Tony doesn't know this and gets into a dangerous situation. Meanwhile, the heroes are trying to check into a hotel with no money. Joe comes up with a beautiful and convincing legend, however it doesn't work. Sara asks to let her try to work things out, and lifts her shirt in front of an employee. It works, and the heroes get a number. However, Joe has a hard time, as he has to sleep on the chairs, while Sara takes the big bed. Before bed, Joe tells Sara that he would like to start a vineyard. He used to have a big house and a fiancée, was a cool lawyer, but then he realized that he did not want to protect the mafiosi and quit his job. His sweetheart didn't understand this nobility and dumped the guy. After the story, Joe fell off the chair, and Sara decided to take pity on him and offered to lie down next to her. The next day, the heroes snuck onto the ranch when they suddenly noticed Vernon pulling up. Recognizing the man, Sara warned the hero that they needed to beware of the guard, and offered to hide better. Unexpectedly, Joe and his companion got into an awkward situation. They were mistaken for veterinarians and were asked to help the bull to come into action. While the hero copes with the bull and gives him support, Sara learns that Gordon intends to sell the ranch and is showing it to potential buyers right now. Coming out of the barn, Joe notices that their client has gone somewhere in a helicopter. The accomplices try to escape, but they are suddenly spotted by Vernon. When a man rams their car, Sara offers to use the vet's car, and eventually they manage to escape. Gordon's lawyer calls Ray and informs him that if the subpoena is not delivered to the girl by tonight, their deal will be cancelled. After talking to Tony, Harris learns that the employee has gone to the wrong place again and gets mad about it. Meanwhile, Sara decides to break into Gordon's office and examine his papers on the sale of the farm. To do this, she is going to enter through the back door, and Joe in the meantime must distract the housekeeper. However, instead of Maria, the door is opened to the hero by Kate, Gordon's mistress. The guy talks to her about wine, while Sara with the help of the housekeeper opens her husband's safe and takes the documents and money she needs. On her way out, she hears voices and realizes that Gordon has indeed taken a mistress. Sara decides to steal her husband's car and spend his money on a luxury hotel with a bathtub. A spark erupts between the characters and they realize that they value each other's soul, not money or anything else. While Sara is taking a bath, Joe meets Kate in a bar. The girl says that she's only meeting Gordon for money, and that if they offered her $1 million, she wouldn't hesitate to give her lover's location. Joe goes with Kate to the room to discuss the offer with Sara. However, it turns out that it's all a trap by Tony to serve Gordon's wife with a subpoena. Sara is angry at Joe for failing the case by believing Kate and kicks the hero out. Suddenly, sitting in a cab, the guy notices the time of Tony's photo and realizes that the man forgot to change the time zone. The hero calls and tells this to Ray, who is already ready to celebrate his victory. Also, with Milton's help, Joe learns Gordon's location and picks up Sara, informing her that they only have an hour to find the man. The hero spots his target in a restaurant and wants to serve the man with a summons sooner rather than later. However, Gordon manages to escape, and he learns from his lawyer that he needs to hold out for another 22 minutes and the case will be won. Meanwhile, Harris informs Tony of Joe's new location and asks him to apprehend him. Gordon manages to hide at a show with a bunch of people, but the hero does not give up. He breaks into the surveillance room and asks an employee to show the man's face on the screen, letting everyone know over the speakerphone that he is sick with a terrible fever. The plan works, and Joe notices a shocked Gordon in the crowd. The man tries to get out, but falls to the stage and tries to save himself and his cowboy hat from being hit by motorcycles. Joe almost catches up with Gordon with 4 more minutes to spare. However, Tony suddenly appears on a huge car and chases the hero, ready to thwart his plan at any cost. The Italian fails to cope with the control and gets into an accident with Vernon. Gordon tries to escape, but is stopped by Sara, dropping several soda cans on the man's head. Just a minute before the saving hour ends, Joe manages to get a photo of his client with a subpoena in hand. Sara kisses the hero and promises that he will definitely get his money. 14 months later, satisfied with his life, Joe relaxes on the terrace of a large house, looking at his own vineyard. Together with Sara, he tastes the wine and realizes that it is certainly better than yesterday, but there is still work to be done. This is the end of the movie. Thank you all for watching this video to the end. Give this video a like. Write in the comments what you think about this movie, and see you in new videos.